All right. I'll let some people get in here before we start up. It's Robbie Faulk, 247 Sports, and Starkville Daily News. For those that are watching this back, we're going to talk a little Mississippi State sports. And if you guys can let me know if you hear me, that'd be great. I've had some issues with the microphone on this computer for the last 30 minutes. So if you're having trouble hearing me, please let me know. Obviously, Mississippi State in the heat of baseball season. They are going through spring practice. They have hired 2 new basketball coaches for women and the men. And we can talk about any of that stuff. If you guys want to throw in some comments, some questions in the chat, feel free to do that. And we will talk about whatever you guys want to. I'm going to start off by talking about what happened this past week for Mississippi State. The baseball team coming off a series loss against Georgia last week had to rebound, and they did by winning in the midweek against Southern University, came back at home against Alabama and won that series. Bad taste in their mouth after Sunday, but overall it was a productive weekend, a productive week for Mississippi State to come home and win that series. They needed that series win badly after what happened at Georgia, and really a frustrating series at Georgia. And that kind of plays into Sunday against Alabama as well. Mississippi State is leaving some games on the table here. They're 15-10 this year. They're 3-3 in SEC play. But there's so much more that this team could be doing right now to improve its chances for postseason as we move forward. There's a long season ahead, so anything can happen, and Mississippi State can go on a big run down the stretch, and this could all be for naught. But right now at 15-10, there's several games there that Mississippi State could have easily won. They could win, be it 18 wins or 19 wins, maybe even 20 wins at this point. You have one hit in the opening game of the season against Long Beach State, dropped a game to Northern Kentucky. You lost 2 games to Tulane that were very winnable ball games. You lost a game at Georgia. You lost this game against Alabama on Sunday. So right now it's just consistency with Mississippi State, and the lack of consistency really is the story for Mississippi State baseball. The bullpen is really struggling for the Bulldogs. Starting pitching has been good enough this year. I thought they were fine on the weekend to give Mississippi State a chance, but you know the bullpen is really struggling for the Bulldogs at this point, and I don't know if it's going to get too much better. We haven't seen enough from them to feel really good about State's bullpen. But KC Hunt could help Mississippi State down the stretch of the season. I think he's getting close to getting back out on the field for the Bulldogs, and that would be good for them if he is pitching at his best, because he was one of the better pitchers in the fall. So we'll see if that changes their fortunes. But going back to that Bama series, Mississippi State couldn't do anything really offensively in both of those Friday and Saturday ball game, and really Sunday too, until late in the ball game. Friday night, really we're not doing much of anything. They were down by 3 runs. Kellen Clark hit a big home run actually it was 4 runs. They were down. Kellen Clark hit a big 3-run home run to really tighten that thing up. It was 6-4 heading into the 9th inning, 2 outs. You get a 2-out walk from Logan Tanner, and the freshman Hunter Hines comes up there and just destroys a ball to right field for a home run to tie the game. And then, of course, in the extra innings, R.J. Yeager walks it off. You kind of have the same thing happen in Game 2. Mississippi State really didn't do anything against the starter. They come out against the bullpen. They start to get something going. They fall behind by 3 runs heading into the 9th inning. They score 4 runs that inning to walk that one off. And it looked like it might play out the same way on Sunday. They weren't getting anything offensively on Sunday either until late in the game, started putting some runners on base against that bullpen. But State's bullpen was not able to hold that game down. And that's really what got them in trouble. They gave up 4 runs after that, or 3 or 4 runs, 3 runs, I think, late in that game. And they weren't able to get back in it. So they lose Game 3, but series win is really what they needed to move forward there and get a good positive vibe going into the week. Oh, let's see. Let's look at some of your questions as you guys are dropping in. Taylor, being a Bulldog fan so hard. Well, even man, I've been covering this team for a long time. I've been around Mississippi State sports most of my life. Yeah, you're right. It's tough sometimes, but you have some good days and bad days. I think that's everybody. LeBron's Friday and Saturday guys on Long Beach State are elite. They were, but Mississippi State shouldn't have. They should have done better than one hit in that game. You shouldn't have had to rely on Landon Sims to completely shut that game down, and he gave up one home run, and the game was pretty much over. You're an SEC lineup. You got to do better than that. You're going to see arms like that all the time. I mean, that guy's one of the best in the country, but there's similar arms out there, and Mississippi State just couldn't touch him. At this point, I think they could have done a lot better job against him this stage in the season. But first game of the year, they couldn't get anything done. They should have taken that series, I think, against Long Beach. Long Beach has not been setting the world on fire since then. Owen think the team needs to stop getting behind because the walk-off magic ain't always going to work. Yeah, it's not. And that's kind of what we said about that team last year. You know, that team last year looked a lot. Sorry about that. That team last year looked a lot like what this team looked like this past weekend. They weren't very good in the first part of the ball game, and then late in the game they would make a run and they would win the ball game. But that team had pitching. This team does not have the pitching that team had, and it's got to be up to the offense at this point. I don't think that you can rely on this pitching staff to come through it like that one did last year. I think this offense is going to have to be really good all year long, averaging 7-8 runs a game to give them a chance. I mean, I do not think that you can trust this bullpen at this point. CJ, what has stood out to you at the spring practice so far? I went to the first spring practice and really not a whole lot going on right now. You just kind of you see who's lining up where and watch guys and drills. I mean, it's tough to really know what you've got out there until they put on pads and you start seeing a little more of that 7-on-7, 11-on-11 stuff that they usually run towards the end of practice. Right now, you just don't see enough. There's just not enough out there. So the early stages of the practices is just seeing who's lining up where, who's starting, who's the second team. And what I was looking at the most in these first practices is who's on the offensive line. The offensive line is really important for Mississippi State this year. You're replacing two of your tackles and probably one of the best offensive, definitely one of the best, maybe the best offensive tackle and pass blocking that you've ever had in Charles Cross. So I like what I've seen from Percy Lewis so far. Is really trimmed up, looks pretty good out there. And also Albert Reese. Albert Reese is going to be pushing for a starting spot, I think, at the right tackle spot. Those two guys have looked good. I like the potential there with those two. I think both of those guys are potential NFL guys. And I like the fact I've mentioned on several shows, I like the fact that Percy Lewis came right in and is starting on the offensive line at left tackle right away. That tells you that your evaluation was correct and that this guy's ahead of schedule, because a lot of times we've seen some of these, guys that were ranked really high come in on the offensive line and on the first few practices they're running third team. Percy Lewis was running first team, first snap of practice on day one. And he's been a guy that has impressed people in the locker room and also has impressed people in the weight room. And he's dropped some weight already. He's trimming up, and I think he has the potential to be really good. I think that's a good first step for Mississippi State to have their guy there, and we'll see how he does in spring scrimmage and some of those practices when he's going up against some of Mississippi State's better defensive linemen like Jaden Crumity when he gets healthy, Jordan Davis when he gets healthy. We'll see how he looks then and also in the fall, but I like what I'm hearing about him so far. Drew, is Sam Purcell leaving state or is Liza leaving? No, they just got hired. Jordan, how are we with Madison Booker? I think they're doing pretty good. She already has a relationship with Sam Purcell. She knows all about Mississippi State. There's nothing to sell as far as Mississippi State is concerned. And I think Mississippi State's very much in the game there. But it's just it's one of those things where you got to build that relationship with her. They're going to have some competition, some of the best competition in the country for her. But I like Mississippi State's chances. I think they'll definitely be in the mix with Madison Booker, and that's good. She's a player that can come in and play right away for Mississippi State in a couple of seasons, and I think she's going to be a really good player. Drew, is any of the staff members still on the women's basketball from last year? No, they'll have a completely different staff. LeBron's back on baseball. If we were able to replay all the games up to this point, be confident they'd salvage 2 or 3. I think that's a very good assessment. I really think that this team could be a lot better than it has been. 15-10 at this point is a disappointment, but you're starting to trend a little better, starting to find yourself a little more, and I think that's good news for Mississippi State. The pitching is just going to be an issue all year, but this offense, 1 through 9, if it starts playing to its full potential, I think you can make up a lot of ground there that this pitching staff's kind of leaving you. We saw that in a couple of games last week. Yeah, the top 4 weren't hitting. Now they're hitting. Yeah, Luke Hancock can be a lot better than he's been. Cam James has not been good with runners in scoring position, but he's been one of your better hitters. I mean, he's second on the team in batting average. So if he starts to hit with runners on base, if Luke Hancock starts to hit a little more consistently and everybody else is doing their part, this lineup can be scary good. I mean, it's just going to be really difficult to get through. Do you know any transfers that Sam Purcell's targeting, or do you know any he's contacted? Not yet. I expect them to contact Variana Edwards from Kentucky if they haven't already. That's one that I think makes a ton of sense, and I'm sure he already has a good relationship with Sam too. But we'll just have to see how that plays out. I don't know who he's going to hire as associate head coach, or who he's going to get out of the portal right now. Is Maya and Jessica staying? That's just a unknown right now because they are waiting to meet with Sam Purcell whenever he finishes up his season with Louisville, and I think they're going to give him a chance to kind of sell him. Right now, that's kind of up in the air for them. Dylan, do you think it would be different season if Harding and McLeod returned and with a healthy Sims? Unquestionably, it'd be different. Harding is probably, I would say Harding, if you had McLeod wasn't going to come back, but Harding was a realistic option. If you had Harding, he would probably be your Sunday guy, and you probably have Cade Smith already on Saturday, if I had to guess. Or maybe you would flip-flop that, but he'd be where Parker Sinnett is right now. And then Sims, if he was healthy, you'd have one of the best Friday night guys in the SEC. And it'd be a completely different. You'd feel completely different about this team if you had Harding and Sims. They're 1 or 2 guys away from feeling completely different. I mean, if Casey Hunt if he comes in healthy and he's able to really pitch it well, you feel a lot different about this team. I think that in baseball, if you have one or two guys that are just absolute studs, that can change a lot for you. Mississippi State is 1 or 2 guys away from the season being completely changed. But the problem is you're not getting hardly anything out of the bullpen. I think Brooks Auger has looked really good. Jackson Fristow just has not been able to consistently put it together. He's throwing strikes. He's not walking anybody, but he's not getting enough outs. And then the rest of the bullpen is just a mess. Cam Tuller has not been able to get things done for Mississippi State as a left-hander. Pico Khan has been up and down. He has a lot of potential. They don't feel good about Jack Walker right now because he's not pitching. Andrew Walling was supposed to be an electric arm for them. He's thrown 1 game, and we haven't seen him anymore after that. So there's nobody out of the bullpen right now that you feel good about. Drew Talley got rocked the other day and got an earful from Chris Lemonis, and he didn't see any action over the weekend. So Chris Lemonis is just kind of honing in on 3 or 4 guys, and they're still not getting the job done. That's scary for Mississippi State. That's to the point where you're having to ask your pitchers, your starters, you want to ask your pitchers to go 8 innings, and they're not able to get there. They're having to elevate their pitch count a little bit, and they're getting 6 innings really is as far as those guys are going right now. And that's just not enough with this bullpen. You can't rely on your bullpen to throw 3 innings at this point. They just don't have a whole lot of guys to run out there that you feel good about. Oh, LeBron, do you think McLeod would have benefited with an extra, I guess, year after surgery? Yeah, but he would have had no leverage. I mean, I don't. Well, actually, I take that back. He had one more leverage year, but he still was getting up there in age. Same thing with Hootie. Hootie was 22, 23 years old, and I think he just thought it was time for him to move on. Once you get that age, I mean, Tanner Allen was getting up there in age as well, and it was kind of a gamble for him to come back because he was getting up there age wise, but he had such an incredible season last year that it didn't matter. He still got drafted relatively high and is going to make some money. So, I mean, you can't blame some of those guys, but Christian McLeod, another year probably would have benefited him. But like I said, I mean, he was actually in his third year last year. So he had another leverage year, but it was for him. He felt like it was time to go. And turns out, he was kind of getting to the point where he was about to require surgery, and that might have factored into why he was not able to really control his pitches late in the season. You kind of sometimes you can see that coming with guys. Austin, Texas. Yes, I have visited practice. I was there last week. Travis, do you think the walk-offs in the Alabama series could springboard State? I think it will offensively. I think offensively, you now feel confident in yourself. I think those guys know that a game is never over. If they have a chance to bat, they have an opportunity late in the ball game to make something happen. You have so many guys in that lineup with pop that the game can change with one swing of the bat. The issue is, like I said earlier, is the bullpen and whether or not this pitching staff is going to give the offense a chance to get it together. If you get down by 4 runs in a ball game, are you going to be able to chip away, or is the bullpen going to make things worse? You just don't know. Dylan, wish you can get more out of Fristow. I agree. I really believe that he's got the stuff. Since he's come out of the back of the bullpen, you've seen that velocity tick back up to 95. So the fastball is there. It's just command. It's making sure that you're making bats miss the ball, because right now he's not able to finish these batters off, and they're connecting and barreling up the fastball. Oh, State was 2-4 in SEC play this time last year, so I think it was more of the Tulane series that made this team so confident. Yeah, probably so, LeBron's, but really that 2-4 start had a lot to do with Arkansas too. They were starting to really pick it up. Austin, what quarterback looks the most impressive? Right now, it's still Will. I like the fact that Sawyer he's moved into the number 2 spot, and that's really good for Mississippi State. You want that freshman that you recruited, that you want to be the future at quarterback. And year 2, you want him to be pushing your starter, and that's what you want out of Sawyer. By fall, you want him to be right on the heels of Will. That shows you that he is close. That shows you that he's making a move, and you definitely want him to move past the walk on Chance Lovertich, and that's good news for Mississippi State that he has. So he's getting the bulk of those reps behind Will. He's getting all of those second team reps, and that's good. But Will is still the guy. I mean, he's going to be a tough guy to move out of the way with all the experience that he has. Kyle, what's your go-to order from Two Brothers? It was the tenderloin sliders, but I've moved on to bigger and better things. Pork belly tacos are outstanding, and I think next time you go there, you should try it. But really, there's nothing on that menu that isn't good. I mean, every single thing on the menu is good. It's my favorite spot in Starkville. I was there Friday night after the game. It was an incredible atmosphere. I mean, it is what they've done there is it's game changing for the city of Starkville. You got to go check it out and go try the pork belly tacos. Do you know if the hump will be finished with renovations by the time the season comes around? I don't think it'll be fully finished. That they'll have it ready for people to come watch the game, but I don't think that it's going to be completely done. I'm not sure exactly the timeline for all the projects that they're doing, but I do know that you'll be able to come in there and sit down and watch a game. I just don't think it's going to be 100% finished. A lot like it was with baseball, except for I don't expect it to be, a little bunch of seats roped off or anything like that. But we'll see. I think what they're going to want to do first is finish the part where everybody's going to be sitting, and then some of the internal things that you might not see, or some of the club level stuff will not be done until maybe the next year. Oh, and I just think Leggett needs to be in the lineup. Forsyth's double play waiting to happen. I do like Leggett a lot more offensively, and like I've said before, there's just not enough defensively that he gives up that justifies taking him out of the lineup. Now you can make some. I think you can make some arguments for something else in the lineup at shortstop, and that could be moving R.J. Yeager to short and having a different second baseman. And here's the thing: I think Mississippi State needs to get the best 9 batters in the lineup. I think I think it's great to have an elite defender like Lane Forsyth. And Tanner Leggett has been really good at short, and he's had some big hits too. But I think you got to get the best 9 that give you a chance to score runs, because you're just not getting enough from pitching to help you out. So you got to have if that's the case, I think the best thing to do would be move R.J. Yeager to shortstop, possibly Aaron Downs at second base. Maybe if you want to move Cam James a second and you want to move Slade, if you feel comfortable with Slade Alford better at third base, that could be a possibility. But there's some options there if you really want to mix it up a little bit and get your best bats in the lineup. But if you're just going to rotate Lane and Leggett all year, I think it'd be better just to pick one and let them roll. And yeah, LeBron's probably. I think you should get Lane in the mix pitching too. I agree with that. Drew, I just answered that above. I do not know on the staff. Austin, Texas. Robbie, what style of play is Purcell going to bring on offense and defense? I'm really interested to see how that plays out, because I talked to Jeff Walls the day that Purcell was hired, and he said that he thinks he's just going to kind of float around to whatever personnel that he has, which I think is a good idea. But he's been able to pull from all different styles, and I think he's going to have kind of his own thing. But I think you're going to see a tough defensive-minded team. That's something that Louisville has been over the years. I believe that you're going to see a true post player in there for Mississippi State, which is navigating away from what they could have had with Carl Smesko, who was John Cohen's first choice. I think this is going to be a half-court offense, more of a half-court style offense that you'll see, motion offense with a really good post player is what he's going to want more often than not. Some big physical guards. That's what Louisville have. I think that's what he's going to recruit here. Mississippi State has had that a few years as well. So I think, and Vic Schaefer was like that too. He wasn't always married to the same style. The personnel that he had when he went to the Final Four, he had a true big, but that second Final Four team he had was a 4-guard lineup that could shoot the lights out. And he didn't have that type of team any other year. He really kind of evolved with that personnel. So I think Sam Purcell can be a lot like that. I think the main thing for Purcell is to recruit really good players, because more often than not, the teams with the best players are the ones that are playing for championships. So I really believe that the talent is going to be the most important thing for Sam Purcell, and I think he can figure out the X's and O's and all that stuff later. Get the best players you can get here, and then figure out how all that stuff fits when that happens. Dylan, do you think Jans can persuade Molinar and Smith to return? I do think he can persuade Smith. It's going to be up to Molinar on whether or not he's ready to go pro. If if he wants to be a first round pick, I don't know if that's going to be the case this year. And with that said, come back another year and your stock can improve. I think he's got a good shot with Tolu, but we'll just have to see how that plays out. Those are the two guys to watch. But Iverson's going to go to the combine probably and workouts and things like that, and he'll be able to evaluate himself and have some evaluations from those that do it for a living. And I think that he'll make the best decision for himself. Hopefully, you can get him back for another year, but if not, wish him the best. I'm hoping he can make a roster and finally give Mississippi State a guy that is on a roster consistently. Because right now they have a lot of guys floating around, but nobody just consistently on a roster. Oh, Art LeBron's question was going around on Twitter. Who are your all-time blue bloods of college baseball? That's a good question because, USC was a juggernaut back in the day, but you don't really talk about them anymore. But I still think that's a great program. So I guess the question would be, are you talking about, you say all time. So is that, are we going to take into consideration that those guys are not great anymore? Because right now, when I look at the blue bloods of college baseball, I think LSU, the teams that have the best program in the game right now, LSU, Texas, I think is a blue blood. I think Mississippi State is a blue blood just based on the fact that they've won a national championship. So I think unquestionably they are a top tier team. I think Arkansas is right on the verge. The only reason I wouldn't put Arkansas in the mix is because they haven't won a national championship. And I think that's to be a blue blood. I think that's a requirement. I think you should win a national championship. And I think Mississippi State winning one can put them into that conversation with some of the other teams now. But, LSU is definitely in that category. I think Florida should be. They have the resources from a recruiting standpoint and things like that. But, I mean, they're leaving a lot to be desired with the results on the field. They got a national championship a few years ago, but, I don't know. There's a lot of teams that are just seem to be there all the time, be in the mix. Mississippi State, the fact that they've had all these different teams the last 3 trips to Omaha, they continue to go no matter, what the style of team or circumstances. I think that is the definition of a blue blood program is you find a way no matter what. I go back to that 2017 team. That team should have been a disaster, and they were within, a couple of games of making it to Omaha. A 2018 team wasn't even going to make postseason late in the year, and they somehow got it. So Mississippi State just finds a way. I mean, they're kind of, in a lot of ways, to me, they're turning into what LSU always was when I was growing up. Alex Box was a place that, the lights came on and, the sun went down. You never could count out LSU. And that's how I feel about Mississippi State at Dudy Noble now. I'm not sure if I felt that way all the time at the old stadium. I feel that way about this place. There's something about this place that makes it a special place to play and just a nightmare for opposing teams. And I think we saw that this weekend. LeBron's, if we kept Hatcher this year, how would our lineup look? I don't know. I think it was just time for him to move on. I mean, I know he's doing a great job at Kennesaw State, but I just think he saw the writing on the wall, and I don't know if he'd be in this lineup because you had Luke Hancock had overtaken him there, and Hancock is the unquestioned first baseman at this point. I don't know where he fits. In the outfield maybe. Could you put him in the outfield somewhere? He played some outfield back in 2019. So he could play. You could put him at one of the corner outfield spots if he was hitting, and that I think it was just time. I think he felt like it was time for him to move on. I think Mississippi State needed to move on. But, man, he is tearing it up, and I'm happy for him. I was really pulling for him at Mississippi State, and for whatever reason, he went in that slump, and he just couldn't get out of it. But it was really cool to see him in the College World Series last year, late in the ball game, playing an important part in Mississippi State, making a run in that game. I think it was against Virginia, and he was a big part of that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm wishing him the best. Very talented player. For whatever reason, for some reason last year, he went cold and couldn't get out of it. All right, any more questions? Drop them in. Don't forget, too, I mention it every time, but if you're not subscribed, go ahead and do that. I would really greatly appreciate it if you guys subscribe to my channel. I've got some of this that comes just about every week. We got press conferences. Every press conference that I attend is on there for you guys to watch. And then even some music on there that you can laugh at if you want to. I just put something up the other day if you guys want to go check it out. Austin, Texas, give me a breakout player in football and offense and defense. My breakout player on offense, let's see. Breakout would be somebody that hasn't really done anything, or at least hasn't been breakout at this point. I guess it could be, I mean, it'd be kind of boring, but Percy Lewis could be the guy, or Albert Reese, who didn't play much last year. I know that's a boring answer. You guys want to hear about the skill players, but the offensive line is really important for Mississippi State, and I think one or both of those guys need to break out for Mississippi State to be really good on the offensive side of the ball. A breakout player on defense for me is Jordan Davis. If he's healthy, I think he can be a game-changing player for Mississippi State on the defensive side of the ball. And they need that. They need a true pass rusher, and that's what he is. LeBron's, the Mississippi State roster on their website, Hancock is a senior. On the graphics, they show the game on TV, he's a junior. But on lineup sheets, he's draft eligible sophomore. So let's see. He was a freshman. He was a freshman 19, right? He was on that 19 team as a freshman, I believe. So 20 would have been a sophomore. 21, he would have been a junior, and this year would have been a senior. So technically a senior. He does have that COVID year. So that would make him a junior if he wanted to be, because he would have one more year of eligibility. The lineup sheets are incorrect. I saw the lineup sheets of the day said Parker Stinnett was a sophomore too, and I don't believe that's correct. So I think that's probably the deal. I think he's going to be technically a senior, but could have another year. All right, y'all. If we don't have any more questions, I appreciate you guys checking in as always. Good talk. Again, subscribe if you aren't already. Come check us out, 247 Sports. Go pick up a Starkville Daily newspaper as well. If you can see those back there, are some of my favorite frames that I got from the College World Series last year. We do some really good front pages. So go check out all that stuff. Support local journalism. Support your guys here at Mississippi State. And I appreciate you guys. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. We will be in Memphis tomorrow, covering that game, Memphis and MSU at the Redbird Stadium, AutoZone Park. So we'll have full coverage of that. Make sure you're following us there. I think the game's on ESPN Plus. So if you don't have a subscription to ESPN Plus, then I guess you'll be following us on Twitter and on the message board, or you'll be listening to Jim Ellis, indoor both. I think you should do all of the above. Even if you're watching the game, come check us out on the website. All right, guys. Hope you guys have a great Monday evening, great rest of the week, and we will holler at you later. Bye.